So, AI is definitely a global phenomenon, and so with me today is Adrian from Core42, which many of you probably know nothing about, but has a fantastic amount of activity and interesting things going on in the AI world. So, Adrian, welcome. Maybe why don't you share what Core42 is and what you're up to, and then we're going to have a kind of conversation about things like sovereign AI and some of the other more interesting global phenomenon.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. My name's Adrian Hobbs. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Core42. Core42 is the AI and technology arm of G42. So really the foundation of the company in terms of infrastructure. We also have a data center business and several industry-aligned, vertically aligned business units.
You know, a lot of people may not know much about G42 if they're just focused on maybe the US, but anybody who's looking at the global landscape of infrastructure, that's been a very big build out, lots of really interesting projects over the last quite a number of years actually, but now with an AI lens on it. So where's your kind of top priorities on AI within that ecosystem? What's the most important areas to focus on and that you're kind of spending your time on?
Yeah, look, our focus has really been around building out what we refer to as the AI intelligence grid. And that's really a framework that connects compute, models and services on a global basis to help some of our customers expand and grow their businesses globally.
Yeah, I think that the challenge everybody runs into once they start doing AI work at scale is it's not a single thing. It is this connected system. We were very much describing that one of the observations is AI is definitely a distributed game. You cannot do AI just in one place in one way, and creating this kind of grid architectures, the ability to actually connect models to infrastructure, to users, to processing is critical. Doing that is not trivial. So you're a technologist, what are the kind of important technologies? Yeah, what do you need to get that done?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's kind of like electricity back in the day, right? And if you think about, you used to build power stations right next to the factories, right? And that obviously changed as we started to create an energy grid. These days, we see something similar happening in AI, right? For us, the generation is really building out these advanced AI data centers across different regions where we have energy-rich nations and we have connectivity, land and power to build out high-density compute infrastructure to service some of the intelligence and the models that are growing in size every day, as well as the network and storage as required. That's really part of the generation piece, similar to the power stations back in the day. And then we start to look at what is our distribution. So what is that grid that we're talking about? That's the low latency, high bandwidth connectivity that connect multiple data centers or precincts to be able to get that intelligence as close to the use case or the end user as possible. Similar to how that electricity grid connects the generation from the power station to the light bulb in your house, right? So that's what we're trying to do at that scale. And then when you start to look at the use cases that are evolving on a day-to-day basis, they require this distributed intelligence that is available across the globe in a low latency, high performance type manner. We're starting to see some interesting use cases emerge out of this. Going back to Abu Dhabi, where a lot of G42 started, we're starting to see some very interesting use cases around what we refer to as the Abu Dhabi Department of Government Enablement, where we've built a super app that deals with everything from citizen services, public safety, and of course, some of the smart city technology that we've introduced into this super app. And that's all powered by what we refer to as our Compass APIs, right? So we've built an API layer when we start to talk about our intelligence grid. So as part of that distribution, it's not just the networking. We obviously need the platforms on top of that to be able to deal with some of our customers' data, but also serving some of these models out to the customer base. And that's what we refer to as our Compass API layer.
Well, it's interesting because I will bet that started as a small project and got much bigger. You're nowhere near done. I mean, what's your backlog look like in terms of how much work is to be done in front of everything you just described?
I'm not sure if you saw the announcement when Mr. President arrived in the UAE, and look, we've announced a very significant milestone, I think, for not only G42 but also the country and the region. We announced our multi-gigawatts, our 5 gigawatt data center precinct within Abu Dhabi. And this is something that we've committed to building out that first gigawatt over the next few years. And we're looking forward to being able to service not only the domestic needs for artificial intelligence, but also a broad regional base, given UAE is quite unique in terms of having the land, the power, being able to access some of this high-performant compute or these advanced computing items, and having the expertise now.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up your political visitors and all of that, because you're also squarely in this area known as sovereign AI. We've been on the record about this. There's, the definition of sovereign AI is a country or a national strategy to navigate and benefit from AI. And there's many dimensions of that. Sometimes it's to build out the infrastructure to have a government that's powered by AI. Sometimes it's to build out infrastructure so that your industrial base can move faster. And sometimes it's not even about infrastructure. It's just about being the orchestrator of your industrial base. And I've traveled around the world, talked to lots of governments, and they all kind of fall into one or more of those. How central to the activities you're doing are they to the sovereign goals of the countries that you're operating in?
Yeah, not only the countries, but also the various sectors and industries that we work with. But it's absolutely central. In fact, the reason we started Core was to really address a global concern around data sovereignty and privacy. And this is something that we've had, I'd say, quite a lot of foresight from a regulatory perspective within the UAE, not only at a national cybersecurity level, but also within various sectors, such as financial services and healthcare, where that data sovereignty is absolutely paramount. And so what we've done as Core42 is we've built a spectrum of platforms to deal with that. On the public cloud, we're really addressing the whole need for data sovereignty. And that's ensuring beyond just residency, but making sure that the data is protected from extraterritorial jurisdiction. So we've built our cloud platform called Insight that applies the guardrails and controls for those organizations who are making that leap from on-premise to some portion of their workload in public cloud. The second thing we've done is on our private cloud. We've established a sovereign private cloud, and that really hits all three elements of sovereignty, not only the data, but also the technology sovereignty, as we've built an entire full stack that has sovereignty and privacy and security controls embedded within it, as well as the operational sovereignty. It's run by resources that are approved to run these types of environments. So it's often a spectrum of data classification that leads to or necessitates multiple options. And then third and finally, what we spoke about before, which is our AI intelligence grid. Right. Sovereignty is first and foremost for when we're dealing with some of the sensitive data that we're inferencing or processing as part of our AI models and solutions.
It's interesting. This week we talked a lot about agents and about this next phase, and many people don't understand that when we move from first-generation generative systems, which are really all about unlocking proprietary data, into agentic, it's actually a different activity. Agents are not about just unlocking data. They're about digitizing skills. And so, interesting enough, your narrative about all the dimensions of sovereignty, well, there's a new one coming, and that is as you move at the actual ability to do work from a human being to a machine, and you transfer those skills into knowledge graphs and models, that is probably maybe the most strategic asset a company or a country has. And so without a foundation to do that in a way you can trust, there's a potential risk of not actually moving very fast on agentic. And even though that's in front of us and it's happening now, I think building a strong foundation where you feel comfortable that you're in control of your destiny is critical.
It's a good point. Like, we're still at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to data. Yeah. Right, a lot of the data coming out of Common Crawl, building these feeding these foundational models, is almost sort of normalizing or commoditizing to some extent. So I think once we start to tap beyond that tip of the iceberg, start to really unlock the power of let's say, domain specificity in those data sets, the proprietary data, as you call it, I think that's going to really change what we see and what we know as agentic AI these days. And also beyond that, as we start to create that new domain knowledge, I think that sovereignty and privacy, and then the rights, the ownership of that data becomes even more important. So a governance framework to be able to deal with any new domain knowledge that's created.
Yep. So, Adrian, thanks for being here. I mean, takeaways are, hey, this is a global game. There are really significant infrastructures being built all around the world. And by the way, just building the infrastructure isn't sufficient. You have to organize it, you have to connect it, you have to govern it. And by the way, even if you get all of that right, the AI cycle changes and a new technology, a new approach materializes. So personally, I think it's pretty exciting. It's a good place to be. Hopefully you're having fun and looking forward to seeing how this goes.
You sure are.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Great to see you.
Thanks very much.